We all utilize water for various purposes in our daily lives. We always feel the air around us that we breathe and see plants growing in the soil. Have you ever wondered what would happen if we had to live without all of these things? Will we be able to make it? The answer is a big fat no. So, what exactly are these necessities for daily life? These are our resources. Resources are our most basic needs to live and lead a happy life. In this chapter 1 of class 10, Geography, which is resources and development, we will see how important resources are for us. And in this video, we are going to study various types of resources and how are they classified? That is, we will study the classification of resources. What are resources? Everything that our environment provides us, that is economically feasible, culturally acceptable, and technologically accessible, are called resources. Students, this definition is very important from an exam point of view and you must learn it by heart. But before learning, you must understand the meaning of 3 important keywords given in the definition. The 3 important words are economically feasible, culturally acceptable, and technologically accessible. Let's understand the term economically feasible by taking the example of gold. We have all of the technology to extract gold, and if we put a lot of money into its extraction and are able to extract very little, then it is not economically feasible for us. In this process, we are losing a great amount of money and are able to gain very little. A resource should add some value to the economy. So, a resource should be economically feasible too to become a resource. Cultural acceptability. Cultural acceptability refers to a resource being valued by society. For instance, gold is reserved culturally and is worn by men and women. Technologically accessible. Technologically accessible means we must have the technology to access the resources we are thinking to use. For example, if we want to extract the gold from its ores, but are not having any machines or tools to do that, we will not be able to use it. You are all done with understanding the definition of resources. Have you ever heard about it, that even you and I both are resources? Why are we considered as resources? This is because humans have an ability to transform gifts from nature into valuable resources. For example, humans turn iron ore to usable iron and make buildings out of it. Humans derive gold from gold mines and use it. So, we humans are also a type of resource. Students, if you observe, you will see that human beings, development, and resources are dependent on each other. We humans can use the resources only if there is interdependency between nature, technology, and institutions. What is the meaning of technology and institutions? Let us understand by taking the example of mining. Institutions like mining industries are created, and technology like mining machines or tools are used if humans need to extract something from the mines. Thus, humans can only extract the resources from mines due to the interdependency between nature, technology like mining machines, and institutions like mining industry. Students, now, let's answer a question which is asked in previous year. These type of questions will definitely make your understanding of the topics better. The question is, explain the role of humans in resource development. Pause the video and think about the answer, or write the answer in your notebook. Now, compare your answer with the answer shown over the screen and mark yourself accordingly. Similarly, you can practice more previous year questions given in EduRev app in this chapter. Why do we need to categorize all the resources? And how can we categorize them? In order to identify the resources and use them easily, we need to categorize all the resources. The resources can be classified on this basis: A. On the basis of origin, B. On the basis of exhaustibility, C. On the basis of ownership, D. On the basis of the status of development. We will now explore each basis of classification. Classifying on the basis of origin. When we are categorizing the resources on the basis of origin, that means we are classifying them on the basis of from where these resources originate. There are two types of resources in this classification, and these are biotic resources and abiotic resources. Biotic resources. These are obtained from the biosphere and have life. Plants, animals, and human beings are the examples of biotic resources. Abiotic resources, all those things which are composed of non-living things are called abiotic resources. For example, air, water, rocks, and metals. We will come on the second type of classification now. Classifying on the basis of exhaustibility. In this, we are dividing the types of resources on the basis of whether these will be renewed or not. We have two types: one is renewable resources, and other is non-renewable resources. Renewable resources can't be depleted over time and can be used and reused over and over again. Non-renewable resources can be depleted over time and can never be restored once it gets destroyed. Renewable resources are also called inexhaustible resources. Non-renewable resources are also called exhaustible resources. Renewable resources are replaced by nature in a short period of time. Non-renewable resources exist in very limited amount and require millions of years to replace itself. The examples of renewable resources are sunlight, water, forest, and wildlife. These are inexhaustible resources and can be renewed over time. Examples of non-renewable resources are fossil fuels like petrol, coal, and metals. These are exhaustible resources and take a lot of time to get renewed. Let us see the third type of classification. Classifying resources on the basis of ownership. In this type, it's important to know who is the owner of the resource. These types of resources are classified on the basis of who owns them. There are four types of classifications which come under this, and these are individual resources, community-owned resources, national resources, and international resources. Individual resources, the resources owned privately by a single person, are called individual resources. Examples are plots, houses, and flats. Community-owned resources. The resources which are accessible to all the members of the community are called community-owned resources. For example, public parks, public libraries, and picnic spots are owned by a community. National resources. The resources which come under the nation are known as national resources. Technically, all the resources belong to the nation. All the minerals, water resources, forests, wildlife, land within the political boundaries are few examples of national resources. International resources. Resources that are not being owned by any specific nation are international resources. There are international institutions that regulate such resources. One such international institution is United Nations. The oceanic resources, beyond 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone, belong to the open ocean. And no individual country can utilize these without the involvement of international institutions. On the basis of the status of development, resources are classified into four groups, namely potential resources, developed resources, stock resources, And reserves. Potential resources. Potential resources are those which are found in a region but have not been utilized. For example, solar energy and wind energy, available in Rajasthan and Gujarat, have not been utilized properly. Developed resources. Developed resources are those resources that have been identified for usage and are being used in the present time. The few examples of the developed resources are coal, natural gas, petroleum, and water. Stock. The materials that have the potential to satisfy human needs is known as stock. Due to a lack of technology, they are not accessed. Water is an example of stock. It is composed of two inflammable gases, hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen both can be used as a source of energy. However, due to the lack of technology, they cannot be used. Reserves. Reserves are the subset of the stock, which can be put into use with the help of existing technical knowledge, but their full use has been postponed for meeting the future needs. Example of reserves are forest reserves, iron ore reserves, water in the dams. Students, with this, we have completed the topic. Let's conclude quickly what we have learned. We have learned what a resource is and understood its definition with the explanation of three important keywords. Then we understood about the interdependence between nature, technology, and institutions. After that, we covered all the classification of resources on the basis of origin, exhaustibility, ownership, and status of development. Now, you can revise all the topics you have learnt with the help of a mind map, documents, and tests given on the EduRev app of this topic.